Welcome everybody to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Groom. As you know, every founder story is a journey worth telling on our platform. Today uh, we have a guest who is focusing on doing some great things in regards to a space that is near and dear to me, which is podcasting, obviously. But our next guest, Angel Nicole, she is the founder of the Alive podcast network. They're stimulating black creatives in the economy by putting the content in the palm of the hands of the people who listen, just like you all who are listening right now. Really cool app. We connected last year. And I just had to have Angel on the platform because she's, again, doing amazing things, a little bit selfishly for a platform and a space that I care about near and dear to my heart. So without further ado, let's bring Angel to the stage. How's it going, Angel?
It is going well. Thank you. Oh, shoot. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, okay. I thought you went like this, like, girl, I can't hear you.
Nah, 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 nah. I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay. Yeah, no, we're here. Thank you so much, Kenny, for inviting me. I'm excited to speak with you today.
Yes, for sure. You're taking a gamble on yourself being a founder in this time. It's definitely an amazing time to be creating something on your own. So without further ado, I want to hop into your background. Let us know a little bit like about Angel before starting a live podcast network. Like what were you doing? What was your focus in life before taking this gamble on yourself?
Yeah, so I would say it was very similar. I've worked in media, TV, radio, film, podcasting for the last 25 years. And so jumping out there, betting on myself was definitely an author. Was definitely something that was a necessity that I saw after working in industry for so long. I've created contents for so many amazing individuals. So for those who remember Larry King, God rest his soul, like I started his show when he had left CNN. I did a show with Jane Pauley in collaboration with the Today Show. It was an audio compliment after her live television segment. And just being able to be creative and allow people an opportunity to kind of share their gifts with the world and monetize through that content. But I realized that that truth wasn't always possible for Black creatives, where they were monetizing at the same rate, they were having their voices amplified at the same rate, but also who owned the content. And so when I really started to work with more Black celebrities and more Black content creators, that's when I really understood how much of a disparity there is, and that's why Alive was created.
I love it. It seems like there's a really cool common thread as you were giving your background about just like creativity.
Yeah.
Like you want to be around it, you want to make sure you're enhancing it, and so it's really cool to see you focusing on a space that I am familiar with. Those pain points in terms of needing better ways for myself as a Black creative to monetize and really own my content.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate you giving us that breakdown there. I'm curious, as you started to think through some of the genesis thoughts for the Live Podcast Network, like what what was that core pain point that you feel like you were trying to solve?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question because as a founder, it's imperative that you understand what the pain point or what is the problem that you are solving. And for me, working in media for so long and entertainment, like really understanding what was missing from the marketplace. If you think about it, over the last 10 years, there really hasn't been a dominant location where you went to listen to podcasts. For the most part, there it's still a growing sector for Black listeners as well as creatives, especially the listeners. So one, seeing that there wasn't one place where people were just like, boom, this is where we want to listen to podcasts by Black hosted, creatives. But then there was also the understanding that Black content was being canceled by major platforms. And so
Mm.
for me to experience that firsthand after creating content for white celebrities and white creatives for so long and never having a show canceled. I mean, I had some shows that weren't even that great that I was a part of their production and things like that, that I was just like, okay, but when you're working for another company and it's like this is what they're tied to and it's part of their mission, their goals, you just rock with it, right? Never once did these shows get canceled. And so when I saw how it impacted the Black community when Black shows started getting canceled, especially the shows that I was a part of, I wanted to change the trajectory of what that looked like for the Black community. And so there was a mental health show that I was a part of and it got canceled. And a listener had wrote in and said, "Hey, like this show, it was my therapy because I can't afford therapy. And now that it's gone away, what am I supposed to do?" And so when you hear and you have moments like that and you have the skill set to impart change, and you're an activated person anyways, you get activated and you do something about it. And so that's like really the problem that I wanted to solve was making sure that there was a home, no matter how many listeners a show had, no matter um, what that person's background was. I wanted it to be an opportunity to really enhance the skill set of Black content creators, as well as making sure that there were no limitations to um, being a part of a network where you had to have 50,000 listeners or 50,000 downloads and all of that, which I think sometimes for content creators can be intimidating.
For sure. Especially it's interesting because there's so many people every day creating, content, creating new podcasts.
Mhm.
There's like millions of podcasts, right, at this moment in time, right? And so like your point, you hit something like the nail on the head in terms of we look at where we want to go in terms of being a creator, and then it's like, oh yeah, we're the North Star a lot of times by default ends up being we're pigeonholed into saying, oh, we need to be like any of the major shows that has hundreds of millions of viewers, and it's like, no, not necessarily. That may not be the lane for you, and that's okay.
Mm.
There's a way you can monetize
Yeah.
way before you get to that point, and that doesn't necessarily have to be your North Star. So I appreciate you talking a little bit about that, and that leads me to my next question because with your experience, you have spent some time. You spent a lot of time, right, in the old form of media. Now you're leading what is going to be the new media wave, and so I'm curious. What's one similarity? Like, what's one thing that's carried over from that old way of how media thinks, and then what's a new way that is just completely against, anarchy against that old method, comparing the new method.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, I have a lot for the first one. But I would definitely say knowing your target audience, right? I think sometimes with these podcasts, some people, they have their passions that they just want to talk about. And while, yes, it is because it's digital, it's a lot easier to just create that content. And actually, I'm gonna give these two, but this one I feel like could be the answer to like you can still do it. Like there's no limitations, like there's no barrier to entry if you have that passion topic that you want to talk about. However, if you want to solve a problem, if you want to be relatable and connect with a real audience, you got to know who your target audience is. You got to know who you're planning to talk to. Now, on the contrary, to the second part of that question, like what's totally different? You ain't had that opportunity before. Like before, like
Mm.
there were so many barriers, like where you had to pitch your show, you had to be selected. It was so much more work that went into you being able to share your voice with the world. today with podcasting, that's no longer a barrier to entry. Anybody can do it, right? Um, but on the flip side, the thing that I think that's really important if you want to be successful is, and this goes back to the way it was before, you got to be consistent. You can't just up one day and say, "Hey, I want to do this," and think that it's going to work. And you're just going to like start off and blow everybody away on your first episode without the marketing, without people really being able to know who you are. There are certain things that go into that process. And like I said, it's consistency and it's like being able to promote your content. Those things are definitely carry over from the old way to the new way.
Mm, I appreciate that. And as you were talking, you got me to thinking about how our first episodes looked and sounded. That it was not the best at all. And it's kind of cringy to go back and listen to some of those first episodes because we're like approaching 100. But I think the cool thing for me is that I use me starting before it was this polished product as like a way to say like, look, to tell the growth story of the platform. I think that's relatable to the founder journey, right? Of being a creative, right? And that's the cool part where, like you said, it's not from day one. Most of the time, you're not going to just wow people, and you gotta be okay with that and really fight through some of that pain and discomfort you may experience early on.
Yep.
So, next up, I want to talk about the topic of technology. What for you, you with your experience being in media, what where are we at with the technology in terms of, I don't want to make this sound like a doomsday scenario, but are we at the point where the technology can do everything that the creative does not want to focus on, if that makes sense? So if they want to just do their creative muse, do you feel like now we're at a point where people can let the technology do all the other stuff?
You mean like through automation? You mean AI? Like what type of tech?
Interesting. All right. So, all right, let's say let's go to the extreme. The extreme is the AI, right? Like what's from an AI perspective, is it okay for somebody who's a creative to just say, "Hey, I want to focus on my art and I want the AI to do everything else." Like, what do you think? How do you feel about somebody saying that's their utopia point? Like, that's where they want to be at. What are your thoughts around that?
So I think it depends, and I want to make sure I'm understanding the question properly, so that I can address it correctly. Are you asking that they want to focus on their artistry that they most care about? So if it's
Correct.
graphic design, that's what they care
Yeah,
about.
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Taking it a level up past just the podcasting, right? And thinking from a creative perspective.
Yes. So I think I don't know. That's hard because I feel like you're not really being creative at that point. If you're
Mm.
just, let's say I'm a writer and I really don't want to, I don't know, like it's hard because if I'm a writer and I want AI to like read my stories and I'm pushing them out on social media as a means of attracting people to who I am, but I don't want to be seen on camera, I don't want to use my voice, and I'm relying on AI to be able to do those things to make me more um, aware to the general public. I get it, right? And my only question will be like, is it really attracting people to your writing? Um, or are you just like depending on technology to really connect with your audience base? And I think that that humanistic form of being able to read your writing, or especially if you're a poet, like perform your poetry in front of people where they feel that expression. I don't think AI has gotten to the point where it makes you feel. It can
Mm.
it can say what you want it to say, but really invoking that emotion and that connection. I haven't seen it, not to say that it won't eventually get there, but I think that you would lose a part of that humanistic part that I think is art. Um, from the podcasting perspective, Alive is a media tech company. We built our own technology for our app and our back end host portal. And so all of those different things, I think, were important to me because I wanted us to say we have ownership and not just the collaborative relationships with other distribution platforms and things like that. And so uh, the thing that gets tricky with protecting your artistry as well as using technology to push your tech, it gets like who owns it?
Mm,
Because with AI and once it's out, like from what I understand, it becomes kind of like public domain and
yeah.
it pulls it and it shares it from that regard. And is that really what you want for what it is that you're creating?
Mm-hmm. There at this point, I don't know if there's like a right or wrong answer, and so I appreciate your perspective on that. It's something where I think the conversation is going to get louder and louder
Hmm.
because, to your point, right? It's becoming more and more apparent that the the major platforms see the value in from an efficiency perspective, right? That's what everybody goes to from day one, right? But then it's like, how do you maintain your artistic kind of integrity through leveraging this tool if you keep feeding this tool more and more of you, right? And then in essence, it just kind of copies essentially just copies you, I think that's where we're at now, where it's a really good copycat.
Oh yeah, one
I
hundred
think it's a
percent,
really good copycat,
100%.
right?
And I think that is there's value there, right? And like you said, efficiency and you being able to focus on other things. But at what point can someone else not say, "Hey, I want you to talk like Angel. I want, XYZ," and other people are able to copycat you as well. We're also there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so now your artistry is no longer protected, which goes back to what I was saying before. So, like, is that really what you want? And for me, that's a whole no.
Yeah, for sure. For me, as of right now, it is a no. But I'm having more and more conversations with folks as well, and I feel like people are teetering on the fence.
Mhm.
And I'll say this moment is like, for podcasting, for me, it feels a lot like when I started podcasting in 2020. Um, for me, it was really cool to go to a platform like Buzzsprout, right, or one of those platforms, right, and just click a button and then upload my episode. And then I will talk to some like OG podcasters, and they were like, "Man, I started recording in like 2008, and I had to go to these different platforms, and you'll never know what it's like to have to like do your own RSS feeds and all that stuff." And that got me to thinking like their perspective is definitely different, and they learn through some things that I didn't necessarily have to experience. And so in
Mhm.
those learnings, I'm pretty sure there's some creativity that they were able to unlock
Yeah.
because they had to do every single aspect of it,
Yeah.
and you had to know it.
Yeah.
Versus now, the technology is allowing people to not necessarily have to be as dive as deep in the
Exactly.
pool,
Yeah.
right, for those
But
different
but
topics.
I also feel like it lends if something were to ever happen and those platforms went down,
Hmm.
that person that's been doing it since 2008, they know what to do.
Yep.
Their show will go on. But for
Hmm.
everyone else that has tapped in later, they're
Yeah.
they're reliant on. And so but that's kind of like the difference between like old school, like you had to tape the film and now everything's
Mhm.
digital. Like there's some skills, but there's also value in not having to go through those things anymore. Um,
Mhm.
but it's also like, but you know what to do in the event that stuff shuts down.
Got it. So, all right, let's pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
because you're definitely giving me a glimpse into how you think, right? Tell me, so you mentioned the shows that you've been a part of, in terms of your career. You've gotten some major awards. You work with some really cool brands. You've built brands as well, like you mentioned. And so I'm curious, like you touched on like that humanity, like early on in the conversation. Like how do you stay grounded in that humanity when you're getting, when you're connecting with these different brands, and some of this stuff seems larger than life. Like how do you go about keeping your humanity through all of this?
Relationships are the most powerful and most they're everything. Relationships are more valuable, in my opinion, than monetary transactions. There are rooms that you will end up in because of a relationship that you have with somebody that money may never ever be able to pay for. And so for me, like the humanity and really being connected to people, that's first and foremost. Like, I'm a people person. Like, I love people. I love learning about people, but I also love supporting people and helping people. And so for me, that's ground zero. Like, in my opinion, a lot of times people who do wrong by others, now we have some situations where it doesn't always appear that way. But in most situations, I feel like the people who do right by people, the people who are always looking out for others, people want to help you. On the flip of the coin, if you have money and you're not great at relationships, the money helps, right? And without me getting into like full blown, I think y'all can read between the lines. Um, but I think in most cases, it's very much like a relationship business, especially podcasting. You're talking to people. People don't want to be on your show if they think that you're going to come on and just like drag them. Like, what they coming on for?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, so it's definitely I I'm probably one of the most humble people because like I tell my kids this, like, it doesn't matter what I did yesterday. It doesn't matter what award I won an hour ago. What am I going to do in this moment? What am I going to do tomorrow to make sure that I'm challenging myself and I can show up as my best self every time I wake up and my feet hit the ground? Yesterday doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's super powerful. I'm taking a moment to folks, if you're listening in, I'm taking a moment to soak all this game in. This is like really good stuff. And this is a topic that's near and dear to me. I really appreciate Angel for taking this leap of faith on herself and starting a platform such as Alive. So I'm curious, in terms of like in terms of growing the platform and investments from
Mhm.
others. Like, where do you the is that a has that always been a top priority, getting investments from others to scale up the platform? Like for you specifically, like talk to me a little bit about just your mindset around investments in general in your platform.
Yeah, so when I first started Alive, like, so I have another media company, and initially I was just going to make the podcast network a sector of the other company. And someone was like, no, don't do that. Make this a Delaware C Corp so you can get investment dollars and all that. And that's not a world that I come from. Like, I'm a straight media girl. I knew nothing really about like building tech and all of that. Like, I'm good at using technology, but the building side, not so much. And so, but I listened and I said, okay, let's step out on faith. If we're gonna do it, we gonna dive all the way in. And so, in the first 3 months of launching Alive, we had received about $250,000 in investment. I was blessed, like my first 100. came from my parents. And then from there, we got accepted into Techstars as a portfolio company. Like we were about 5 months old when we got accepted into Techstars. So we got investment there. We also got mentors, which again, those people and those relationships really help propel us and get the momentum going. The money helps because that helped build the tech. Um, but now I'm in a place where I'm not really interested in continuing to acquire investment dollars. The way that I think about this, and I may be completely wrong. So, if you are on the fence around getting investors, because there's a lot of people and a lot of businesses, they get a lot of money from investors, and that is how they want to build their company. And I don't see anything wrong with it. But I think for me, I want something different. When you're in trouble as a startup founder, I think that is a pivotal time to learn. And if you just like hop on stage, do a pitch competition, win some more money, and you keep doing the same thing, you're not learning. You're wasting. You're wasting time and you're wasting money. And when I got into my pickle of a moment, I decided in that moment that if this is really for me and if this is what I'm really supposed to be, it's my job to figure out how to make it work. I don't want to dilute the company so much that my initial investors are getting less money. Like, how can I make this thing pop so that the people who really believed in me from ground zero, we're all growing and rising together. And
Mm.
so I literally went to the drawing board and was like, okay, boom, like working numbers backwards. Like, what do we need to hit? How do we need to do this? How do we need to market? Where do we need to publish ourselves? Where do we need to be highlighted? And from that, really being able to draw some major conclusions that are not just 100% reliant on investment dollars. Investors are great. I am grateful for every investor that has believed in the vision of Angel and Alive. Truly appreciate them. But now I feel like it's my turn to kick in and really make those dollars work and make sure that it is a profitable business, not just one that's reliant on investment dollars every year or two.
That's dope. That is something that we do not hear a lot, Angel. As you alluded to it, right? A lot of it is we need more money, right? We got to burn some money. We got to keep burning money essentially to grow at the scale that we want, right? And that's not always the case. And it's okay for a business to say like we're going to focus on being profitable with
Yeah.
the money we have in the bank. Like that's perfectly okay. And I don't think we hear that enough, specifically when it comes to businesses that are, businesses that get some sort of capital from other investors. That
Yeah.
doesn't bubble up and resonate towards the top of what we hear. The algorithms do not push that, and I know you're familiar with the algorithms and what they push.
But I also
So,
don't know if many founders, one, operate from that same vein, and two, openly speak.
mm,
So we can't blame algorithms if the conversations aren't being had. You know what I
mm,
mean? So I'm a very direct and transparent individual. And so I would never get out and tell people like, oh yes, it's been hunky dory for the last 3 years and we've done this and this and this, and I'm just continuing to soar. Like there being a startup founder, being a business owner, there are ebbs and flows. And how you operate in those moments where you're in the valley, that is imperative, in my opinion, to the success of the company. Again,
mm-hmm,
I can jump out there and I can win some pitch competitions. Angel decided that's not what she wanted to do. And my one of my last investor meetings with one of my existing investors, I was kind of telling him what I was doing, and he's like, "Well, how much runway do you have?" And this and the other, and I think it freaks investors out, understandably.
mm-hmm,
However, for me, I'm like, "Don't you want me to solve the problem? So I'm not just keep coming to you like I need more money?"
mm-hmm.
Like, I'm a problem solver, and I honestly believe God gave me this vision for launching Alive. Then he's going to show me like, okay, yep, don't do that again, do this. And I will be guided and the right people will cross my path to make sure that it is successful. But just being like, oh, give me some more money, give me some more money. And everything is like a trial and error. I'm going to tell you a quick story about like the tech side of things. When I first started, again, I'm not a techie. I ain't never built no app. However, the first person that I worked with um to be my developer, he ended up not really doing it. He found another company in another country and whatever. But what I learned very early on when I was like asking, people who build apps and all that, every one of them said, "Oh yeah, I can do it. I can figure it out. Like I can build what it is that you want." But what I had to learn, the translation of that was, as long as you're paying me to figure it out, I will eventually get you rich.
Mm.
I don't want to be that as a business owner. I don't want to keep taking your investment dollars trying to figure it out. Let me figure it out. And then once I'm like, boom, we good, and I need money to do this to push it, then I will consider going back to my investors and saying, this is working. Here's the strategy. Here's the game plan. But just to keep throwing money away, yeah, no, that for me, that doesn't work for me.
No, you spit game, Angel. You spit game. As you were explaining that scenario, it sounded like it could be like a horror scenario. I'm not even going to front with like somebody. I can imagine like somebody telling you from a tech perspective, yeah, of course I can build this. And then we all have seen that, like we see all the memes, we see all the posts where people are just like, yeah, I told them I could build it, and then I went to Google and just started googling stuff, and it's like, no, 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 no,
Yeah. And
that's
and I
that's.
I went through it. I literally went through about 4 developers in a year.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine how much
Wow.
money I wasted.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, all right. So this is I think this is gonna be a good segue and wrap up question.
Okay.
So because you touched on something in terms of maybe the conversations are not necessarily happening, right? And so we can't always blame the algorithm. Right. So like I'll use myself as an example. I have a nephew. He's like mid teens, right? And now he wants to start like a clothing brand, right? And that's his thing, right?
Mhm.
So what are we supposed to tell this next generation of business owner? Because they have at their fingertips all the tools. They have resources, right? Like he comes to me and asks me for money. Okay, whatever, I give it to you, right? Like they
Mhm.
have the resources, they have the tools, but I'm not sure that having those resources and tools is going to
Equate to success.
equate to success or even increase their chances of success anymore. So like what are you telling the next up and coming, founder, business owner cuz they are starting younger and younger it seems like, which is a good thing I think.
Beautiful. Okay. So my go-to line is start from where you are, right? Um and my kids are 8 and 11 and they have a podcast and oh shoot, they are not 8 and 11. Child, they would kill me right now. They are 10 and 12 now.
That's okay.
um but when they were like 8 and 11, that is like really when I started
Mm,
encouraging them to start your business. What is it that you want to do? You want to write a book? Boom, let's do it.
mhm,
But with that, be a good steward over your services.
mm,
Because things are so easy, be intentional, right? Like, don't just tell me you want to do this today and then your friend comes and tell you they're doing something else and so you want to jump ship.
mhm,
Be intentional, right? And when I say be a good steward of your services, like research. Like, I have friends who their kids have come to them with PowerPoint presentations and they're like,
mm,
this is really what I want to do. Show me that. Show me what your plan is. Like, yes, like you can go to YouTube University and you can do all of these different things, and I believe in you. However, I want to make sure that you are a good steward of one, what your creative process is going to be. How are you going to get through and do all of the different steps? How are you distributing your content? I mean, or your product. So if you have a website, what does that look like? Are you doing drop shipments? Are you going to have all this stuff here and you're going to mail it out? How much is that going to cost you? Have you really thought about every aspect and doing your pricing? And I think that gives parents and loved ones an opportunity to step in and be a guide. But I think more than anything, like support them, because the younger they start, the quicker they fail, the quicker they learn, the quicker they succeed. But in that success, of course, we want them to succeed, right? But there's
Hmm.
even lessons in the success because they can become super successful millionaires and blow through the money and have nothing by the time they're out of high school. Right?
Facts.
But that's a lesson learned that
Hmm.
when they do it again, they're not gonna do the same things that they did before. And so that goes back to being a good steward, that goes back to being intentional, but sometimes we have to teach them really what that means because it's so easy now, and because they see all of these other people doing it, and they're like, "Huh, I can do that too." And yes, baby boy, you can. Yes, baby girl, you can. However, I want to make sure you do it right. I want to make sure
Hmm.
you aren't just equipped with the vision, but the tools to execute that vision with excellence.
Dope. I hope I'm gonna send this episode to my nephew for sure because we got some conversations to have based off of what you're telling me, Angel. Yeah, so he needs to get ready. But yeah, I love the energy. I love that talk, like you said, like setting them up for success.
Yeah,
That word of being a steward. Oh my gosh, like um, they probably don't use that word in their vernacular nowadays, and they need to. But
right.
that is like a powerful word. Like that goes back to the things that are, I think, I don't want to say they're soft skills, but they're the things that set businesses up for success, customer service, things like that. Like these are things people are overlooking now, and
Mhm.
then on the back end, those will end up being the factors and the reasons why the business wasn't successful. So I appreciate you throwing that out there. I appreciate all the knowledge you dropped on this episode, Angel. Like it's been amazing. Just picking your brain again. You're building a platform for somebody like me who's actually going to leverage it as a podcaster, but then from an audience perspective, like the audience, I want to make sure that they know how they can tap in. Like, what's the easiest way for them to tap in with Alive, the podcast network, to get it on all their devices? Like, tell us a little bit about the easiest path for people to connect with the Alive podcast network.
Yes. Well, before I dive into the social media and the website, there is a book out called The 30-Day Visionary Archangel, which is a guide to help people who have the vision, but need kind of like a blueprint to make sure that they're doing the work and doing the work the right way. Um, it looks like that. And it's available on the website angelnicole.us. To learn more about the Live Podcast Network, you can go to alivepodcastnetwork.com. You can also find us in your app store in iOS or Android app, um, or Google Play. It's just a live podcast network. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Angel. I'll definitely make sure I put the book and the links in the description for this episode. Loving you plugging that as well, that book as well. I've transitioned from audiobooks to physical books again, and so I'm excited to get a copy of that. Lastly, the thing that I always want to make sure that our guests have the last thought in terms of like, what do you want our listeners today? A lot of them are business owners or people that may be on the fence in terms of starting their business. Like, what do you want people to take away from this conversation, that lasting thought?
Yeah, so I would say the last thought for the listeners is just you are more powerful than you know. And sometimes we try to hide behind that power because we don't want to offend other people, or we don't want to outshine people that we grew up with or our family. And um, I just want you to know that, like, that's not your job. That's not your job. Your job is to be your absolute greatest self. And God planted a seed in you, and it's been watering, and it's probably something that's been nagging at you, but you've been holding back because you don't want to offend somebody. That's not your job. Your job is to show up and to bet 100% on you and the vision that is within you. And then that's where your success is. And so I would just say stop playing small and get out there and win.
Thank you. Mic drop moment. For those that are listening with us right now, thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. Peace.